Hey guys, tonight we begin with something a little different. A time of brutal cold, survival, and adaptation. We're diving into how ancient Inuit people managed to sleep in temperatures that would kill most of us within hours. Forget the heated homes and electric blankets we take for granted. The truth is, you probably wouldn't last a single night sleeping in the Arctic winter, and I'll explain why today. So before you get comfortable, to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're hearing this from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to me seeing who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background noise, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations! You've just awakened in a traditional Inuit settlement somewhere in the Arctic Circle, perhaps near what we now call northern Canada or Greenland. The good news, you're alive. The bad news, it's winter and the temperature outside has dropped to negative 84 degrees Fahrenheit. There's no central heating, no electric blanket, no memory. Foam mattress, just you, animal skins, and a small community of people who have perfected the art of surviving in one of the most hostile environments on Earth. The wind is moving across the frozen landscape outside. You can hear it, a constant companion that never truly goes away in winter. The cold here isn't just cold, it's an entity, a presence that surrounds everything and everyone. The Inuit don't fight against it. They've learned to live alongside it, to respect it, to adapt to its demands. Living in temperatures this extreme requires wisdom passed down through generations. Wisdom about sleep, about shelter, about survival. You're inside an igloo. Many people think igloos were the primary dwellings of all Inuit, but that's not entirely accurate. Different Inuit groups used different shelters depending on their location, the season, and available materials. Some used semi-subterranean homes made of stone, whalebone, and sod. Others used tents covered in seal or caribou skin during summer months. The igloo, made entirely of snow, was often a temporary winter shelter, particularly for those in the central and eastern Canadian Arctic. But tonight, you're in an igloo, because it demonstrates one of the most ingenious approaches to sleeping in extreme cold. The igloo around you was built earlier today. It took about 2 hours to construct. The builder cut blocks of compacted snow, placing them in a spiral pattern that rises to form a dome. The snow used isn't soft, powdery snow. It's firm, compacted snow that can be cut like blocks of building material. Each block weighs perhaps 50 pounds. They're placed in a rising spiral, leaning slightly inward, creating a dome that's remarkably strong. A skilled builder needs no tools except a snow knife, traditionally made from bone, antler, or ivory. Now, many use metal tools, but the principle remains unchanged after thousands of years. Inside, the temperature is around freezing, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 Celsius. That's still cold by most standards, but compared to negative 84 degrees outside, it feels almost comfortable. How can a house made of snow be warmer than the air outside? The answer lies in snow's insulating properties. Snow contains tiny air pockets that trap heat. The walls of the igloo, about 12 to 18 inches thick, create a barrier between you and the extreme cold. The dome shape allows air to circulate while preventing heat from escaping through the top. The entrance to the igloo is a tunnel that dips downward before rising into the main chamber. This simple design is crucial for warmth. Cold air is heavier than warm air, so the cold air sinks and stays in the entrance tunnel, while warmer air rises and remains in the living space. It's physics working in harmony with human ingenuity. The floor of the igloo is set below the entrance level, creating a cold sink that keeps the coldest air away from the sleeping platform. The sleeping platform itself is raised, taking advantage of the fact that heat rises. This platform, where you're now sitting, is where everyone will sleep tonight. It's covered in caribou furs. Caribou fur is hollow, creating millions of tiny air pockets that trap heat near the body. The fur of one caribou has about 350,000 hairs per square inch. Each hair a tiny insulator working to keep you alive through the night. Near the entrance of the igloo, a stone lamp burns quietly. This is the kulik, an essential tool for Inuit survival. The lamp is carved from soapstone, filled with rendered fat from seals or whales. The wick is made from Arctic cotton grass or moss. The flame is small, controlled, producing just enough heat and light without creating excess smoke that would fill the small space. This lamp serves multiple purposes. It provides light in the endless darkness of Arctic winter, heat to increase the interior temperature, and a way to cook food and melt snow for drinking. Water. The kulik burns slowly, efficiently. The woman tending it adjusts the wick occasionally, maintaining the perfect flame size. Too large and it would produce too much smoke and consume too much fuel. Too small and it wouldn't provide enough heat. This lamp is the heart of the home, burning through the night as people sleep. Tending the kulik is traditionally women's work, vital to the survival of the entire family. The careful maintenance of this lamp throughout the night is as important as the hunting skills that provide food. You watch as the family prepares for sleep. There are no separate bedrooms, no privacy as we understand it in the modern world. Everyone will sleep together on the raised platform, sharing body heat. This isn't just a practical arrangement. It's social, communal, strengthening the bonds between family members who depend on each other for survival. Before they sleep, they eat. The meal is simple but rich in fat and protein, essential nutrients for surviving in this environment. Perhaps it's seal meat, rich in fat and iron, or caribou, leaner but still providing necessary calories. Maybe some frozen fish, eaten raw to preserve the nutrients that would be lost in cooking. Whatever the meal, it focuses on providing maximum calories and nutrients to maintain body heat through the long, cold night ahead. Water is precious and difficult to obtain. Snow must be melted using the precious fuel of the kulik, so every drop is used carefully. Before sleep, each person drinks just enough to stay hydrated without needing to leave the warm sleeping platform during the night to urinate. This bodily function, unavoidable as it is, presents real dangers in extreme cold. Leaving the warm sleeping area means exposure, even briefly, to colder air. The Inuit developed special containers for this purpose, allowing them to relieve themselves without leaving their sleeping position when necessary. Now, it's time for sleep. The family doesn't simply lie down in their day clothes. They follow a specific routine, developed over countless generations, refined through the harsh teacher of survival. First, they remove their outer garments, the parkas made of caribou fur. This seems counterintuitive in such cold, but there's wisdom in it. The goal is to prevent sweat from accumulating in the clothing. In this environment, wet clothing can mean death, as the moisture would freeze when exposed to outside air. By removing the heaviest clothing before sleep, they prevent overheating and sweating. They don't sleep naked, of course. They wear lighter inner garments, often made from the softer belly fur of the caribou. These inner clothes are designed to wick moisture away from the body while providing a layer of insulation. Sometimes they sleep in clothes specifically designed for sleeping, different from their day wear, preserving the integrity and dryness of both sets. The removed outer garments aren't set aside carelessly. They're turned inside out, allowing any accumulated moisture from the day to freeze and be brushed off easily in the morning. These garments may be placed beneath or around the sleeping area, providing additional insulation. Sometimes mittens and boots are placed beneath the sleeping platform to keep them from freezing completely solid. The sleeping arrangement itself is strategic. The family lies close together, sharing body heat. They position themselves on the caribou skin, sleeping platform, which provides crucial insulation between their bodies and the snow beneath. Caribou skin is used because of its exceptional insulating properties. When caribou hair is compressed, it doesn't lose its insulating ability the way many other animal furs do. The direction of the fur is important too. It's arranged with the grain pointing toward the sleeper's feet, creating a smoother, more comfortable surface. Over themselves, they pull more caribou skins, creating a shared blanket of remarkable effectiveness. Some groups used a more structured sleeping system resembling a large sleeping bag, where multiple people could sleep together in a single enclosure of furs. Before synthetic materials, before down comforters, these natural materials provided insulation that still rivals our modern sleeping gear in effectiveness. The sleeping position itself is distinctive. People often sleep close together, sometimes in a row, sharing body heat efficiently. The youngest children sleep between adults receiving warmth from both sides. Elders whose circulation may not be as strong are also given positions of warmth within the sleeping arrangement. No one sleeps alone. That would be wasteful of precious body heat and potentially dangerous. The kulik continues to burn as they settle in for sleep, its small flame providing a gentle, steady heat that gradually raises the temperature inside the igloo. The lamp's light casts soft shadows on the curved walls of snow. The woman who tends the lamp will adjust it periodically through the night, perhaps not even fully waking to do so. Her body trained by years of practice to maintain this life-giving flame even during sleep. As they lie there in the dim light, breath forming small clouds in the cool air, they may talk quietly. Stories might be shared, knowledge passed down, community bonds strengthened. These aren't just idle conversations to pass time before sleep. They're an essential part of cultural transmission, teaching younger members the wisdom they'll need to survive. Even the way stories are told, calm, measured, repetitive, helps prepare the mind and body for sleep. Sleep comes differently here than in our modern world. There are no electric lights disrupting natural circadian rhythms, no smartphones or television screens emitting sleep-disrupting blue light. During winter, the Arctic experiences long periods of darkness, sometimes with the sun not appearing above the horizon for months. Human sleep patterns here align more closely with these natural rhythms of light and dark. Research suggests that in traditional Arctic communities, sleep wasn't always the consolidated 8-hour block we consider normal today. Instead, people might sleep in multiple phases, waking periodically throughout the long night to check the lamp, adjust coverings, or sometimes to talk or eat before returning to sleep. This segmented sleep pattern was common in many pre-industrial societies around the world, not just in the Arctic. It's only relatively recently in human history that we began to consider an unbroken 8-hour sleep as the natural pattern. As you lie there, trying to fall asleep alongside the Inuit family, you notice how quiet it is. There's the occasional soft crackling of the kulik, the gentle sound of breathing, and beyond the igloo walls, the constant presence of the wind. These sounds create a natural white noise, remarkably soothing once you adjust to them. There's no mechanical hum of refrigerators or heating systems, no distant traffic or neighbors' televisions, just the sounds of human breath and the elements. The air you breathe is cool, but not uncomfortably cold. Each exhale creates a small cloud that quickly dissipates. Your nose and the exposed parts of your face feel the coolness of the air, while the rest of your body remains surprisingly warm under the shared furs. This sensation of a cool face and warm body is actually conducive to good sleep, mimicking the natural drop in body temperature that helps initiate sleep in all humans. As the night progresses, frost may form around the sleeping area from the accumulated breath of the sleepers. By morning, this frost might coat the interior walls of the igloo, adding an additional thin layer of insulation. In the entrance tunnel, your breath would freeze instantly. But here, on the raised sleeping platform, the temperature remains just warm enough to prevent this immediate freezing, while still cool enough to remind you of the hostile environment, beyond these snow walls. The Inuit understand something about sleep that modern science has only recently confirmed, that cooler ambient temperatures often promote better sleep quality. Studies today show that a slight drop in core body temperature helps trigger and maintain sleep. The Inuit sleeping environment, with its cool air but excellent insulation, creates nearly ideal conditions for quality sleep, despite the extreme environment outside. You lie there, gradually becoming aware of a different relationship with darkness and light than you're accustomed to. In the Arctic winter, darkness isn't just the absence of daylight for a few hours. It's a season unto itself, lasting for weeks or months depending on the latitude. This extended darkness affects everything, including sleep patterns. The human body produces melatonin, the sleep hormone, in response to darkness. In the prolonged darkness of Arctic winter, melatonin production and sleep patterns adjust accordingly. In modern society, we often fight against darkness, extending our days with artificial light. Here, people work with the darkness, adapting their activities and sleep to the natural rhythms of their environment. They don't resist the long nights of winter, but incorporate them into their seasonal cycle of life. There's wisdom in this surrender to natural patterns, a wisdom our modern world often overlooks. As your body settles into the shared warmth of the sleeping platform, you begin to understand that sleeping in extreme cold isn't just about staying warm enough to survive. It's about finding the optimal balance for restorative sleep. Too cold, and the body expends precious energy maintaining core temperature. Too warm, and sleep quality suffers. The Inuit sleeping system, refined over thousands of years, achieves a remarkable balance that modern sleep technology still strives to recreate. The caribou furs beneath and above you provide what sleep scientists would call microclimate management, regulating humidity and temperature in the small space immediately surrounding the body. The natural fibers absorb some moisture from your breath and body without feeling damp, maintaining comfort throughout the night. Modern synthetic sleep materials attempt to recreate this property with varying degrees of success. Your awareness of time begins to shift as you lie there. Without clocks, without the artificial divisions of hours and minutes, time is measured differently. Sleep doesn't begin at a designated hour and end with an alarm. It flows with the needs of the body and the natural rhythms of the environment. You sleep when tired, wake when rested, or when needed. This natural approach to sleep timing is something our modern world has largely lost, often to the detriment of our sleep quality. The sleeping platform beneath you isn't perfectly flat. It has slight contours, either built intentionally or formed naturally as the snow beneath the furs settles under human weight. These subtle contours actually help support the body's natural alignment, not unlike how modern mattress designers create zones of different firmness to support different parts of the body. Your hip might sink slightly into a softer depression while your back remains supported. Natural ergonomics developed through generations of practical experience. As you begin to drift towards sleep, your body gradually releases its tensions. The day's activities, perhaps hunting, preparing food, maintaining gear, required constant vigilance against the cold. Now, in the relative safety of the igloo, surrounded by the warmth of other bodies and protected by the ingenuity of the shelter design, your muscles can finally relax. This physical surrender to rest is profound, a daily small death and rebirth necessary for survival. The sound of breathing around you creates a gentle rhythm. Someone might shift position, causing a rustling of furs. These small sounds aren't disturbances, but reassurances. Reminders that you're not alone in this harsh environment, that human presence and warmth surround you. In the modern world, we often seek silence and isolation for sleep. Here, the sounds and proximity of others provide security, an essential component of deep, restful sleep. Your mind begins to quiet, following your body into relaxation. There's nothing to check on your phone, no last email to send, no show to finish watching. The simplicity of this moment, just body seeking rest in the darkness, has a profound calming effect. The concerns that might keep you awake in your normal life seem distant here, replaced by more immediate awareness. The warmth of the furs, the sound of breathing, the small flame of the quollic casting gentle light on the snow walls. Sleep in the Arctic isn't just a biological necessity, it's a skill, developed and refined through practice and cultural teaching. Children learn from an early age how to prepare for sleep in this environment, how to position their bodies, how to regulate their clothing and coverings. They learn to wake briefly to adjust without fully rising to consciousness, to maintain their position within the shared sleeping space, to respond to the needs of their bodies while preserving the precious warmth they've accumulated. As sleep approaches, you might notice how the boundary between wakefulness and sleep feels different here. Without artificial light keeping you artificially alert, without screens stimulating your brain, the transition to sleep comes more naturally. Your consciousness doesn't fight against sleep but surrenders to it willingly, recognizing it not as an interruption of life, but as an essential part of it. The positioning of bodies within the shared sleeping space isn't random. There's an unspoken choreography, developed through practice and necessity. People don't just lie down anywhere. They arrange themselves according to age, relationship, and need for warmth. Sometimes sleepers form a row, spoon fashion, maximizing the shared body heat while minimizing the surface area exposed to cooler air. The smallest children often sleep between parents or other adults, receiving warmth from both sides, their smaller bodies having less thermal mass to maintain temperature on their own. During sleep, people might shift position together, almost like a single organism responding to changing comfort needs. If one person turns, others might adjust in response, maintaining the closed system of shared warmth. This unconscious coordination during sleep speaks to the deeply social nature of human rest, something our modern individualized sleeping arrangements have largely forgotten. The quollic continues to burn as you drift deeper towards sleep. Its small flame produces more than just physical warmth. It creates psychological comfort, a primal reassurance that goes back to our earliest ancestors who found safety near fire. The gentle light it casts, the small sounds it makes, the familiar smell of the burning fat, all create sensory anchors that help maintain a sense of security even in sleep. Throughout the night, someone, usually a woman, might wake briefly to tend the flame, adjusting the wick to maintain the proper size. This responsibility is taken with utmost seriousness, as allowing the lamp to go out during the night would mean a dangerous drop in temperature. This periodic tending doesn't require full wakefulness. Experienced lamp tenders can adjust the flame in a state of semi-sleep, their bodies knowing the movements so well they require little conscious thought. As you sleep, your body continues its work. In the cold environment, even with the excellent insulation provided by the igloo and furs, your metabolism remains somewhat elevated compared to sleeping in warmer conditions. Your body generates heat through ongoing metabolic processes, contributing to the shared warmth of the sleeping space. The high-fat diet common in traditional Inuit culture helps support this increased metabolic demand without requiring conscious eating during the night. The air quality inside the igloo changes subtly as the night progresses. The breathing of the sleepers increases humidity and carbon dioxide levels. This might sound concerning to modern ears accustomed to worries about indoor air quality, but the snow walls of the igloo are actually somewhat permeable to air. They allow a slow exchange of gases without letting heat escape too quickly. Nature's perfect ventilation system. The small hole at the top of the igloo, necessary for the smoke from the quollic to escape, also provides additional air exchange. This balance of airflow is delicate. Too much ventilation would mean heat loss. Too little would lead to poor air quality. The traditional design of the igloo, refined over countless generations of trial and error, achieves a remarkable balance that modern building designers still study for inspiration. The slight increase in carbon dioxide levels that does occur may actually help induce and maintain sleep, creating a mild sedative effect. Dreams come differently in this environment. Without the constant influx of novel stimuli that characterizes modern life, dreams here often reflect the immediate concerns of survival and community. They process the day's hunting, the social interactions, the ongoing tasks of living. Sometimes they carry messages or omens taken seriously as potential sources of wisdom in Inuit culture. Dreams aren't dismissed as mere neural housekeeping, but considered an important channel for understanding and navigating both the physical and spiritual worlds. As the night deepens, the temperature outside may drop even further, perhaps approaching the extreme of -84 degrees Fahrenheit mentioned earlier. Inside the igloo, the temperature remains relatively stable, a testament to the effectiveness of this snow shelter. The greatest threat to this stability would be a sudden storm that blocks the ventilation or damages the structure, but the igloo's design makes it remarkably resilient even to powerful Arctic winds. Your sleep cycles progress through their natural rhythm, from light sleep to deeper slow-wave sleep, then into REM sleep where most dreaming occurs, then back through the cycle again. In the traditional Arctic winter, these cycles might be somewhat different from what we consider normal today. Some research suggests that indigenous people in Arctic regions historically experienced longer overall sleep duration during the winter. Darkness, with possibly longer REM periods as well. The body adapts to the extended night, finding its natural rhythm in alignment with the environment rather than fighting against it. The sound of the wind outside might increase at times, then subside again. These changes penetrate your awareness even in sleep, not as disturbances, but as part of the sound landscape your sleeping brain continues to monitor. The human brain never fully shuts down its surveillance of the environment, remaining alert to sounds that might signal danger while filtering out those that represent safety or normalcy. Here, the sound of the wind is normal, expected, part of the rhythm of life. As the night progresses, the shared body heat of the sleepers continues to work with the insulation of the structure and furs to maintain a survivable microclimate. The temperature differential between the sleeping platform and the entrance tunnel may increase, the cold air settling more densely in the lower spaces. This thermodynamic process happens automatically, requiring no technology beyond the thoughtful design of the living space. The shared sleeping platform isn't just about physical warmth. It reflects and reinforces the social bonds of the community. Sleep in traditional Inuit culture, as in many indigenous cultures worldwide, isn't the private, individualized experience we've made it in the modern world. It's communal, interdependent, a time when physical vulnerability is entrusted to the group. This shared vulnerability creates and strengthens bonds of trust essential for survival in such a challenging environment. If you were to wake briefly during the night, you might notice frost on your eyelashes or on the fur nearest your mouth where your breath has frozen. This isn't cause for alarm, but a normal part of sleep in this environment. You might reach up to brush it away before settling back into the warmth of the furs. These small waking moments don't constitute poor sleep quality as we might consider them today, but are simply part of the natural rhythm of rest in extreme cold. Throughout the night, the position of sleepers might shift slightly as people respond unconsciously to changing comfort needs. Someone might move closer to another person for additional warmth, or shift to relieve pressure on a limb. These movements are usually subtle, accomplished without fully waking, maintaining the precious envelope of accumulated heat within the shared furs. The concept of sleeping in doesn't exist here as we understand it in the modern world. rising happens when it needs to happen, when the body has had sufficient rest, when daily tasks require attention, when hunting conditions are optimal. During the dark winter, the distinction between night and day blurs, and sleep timing adapts accordingly. There's a natural wisdom in this responsiveness to body needs rather than arbitrary clock time. As morning approaches, though in the Arctic winter this might not mean literal daylight, the igloo begins to prepare you for waking. The air quality shifts slightly as the ventilation system continues its slow exchange. The lamp might be adjusted to provide a bit more light as the person tending it anticipates the coming day. These subtle environmental cues help ease the transition from sleep to wakefulness. The awakening process itself is gradual. There's no jarring alarm, just a natural transition as the body completes its sleep cycles. Someone might stir, adjust. The lamp perhaps adds some snow to a container placed near the flame to begin melting water for the day. These small sounds and movements gently signal to other sleepers that the time for waking approaches, allowing each person's body to complete its sleep cycles naturally. Before rising from the warm cocoon of the sleeping platform, people take time to prepare mentally and physically for the shock of greater cold. They might stretch within the furs, increasing blood flow to extremities, preparing the body for movement. They might perform small personal grooming tasks while still benefiting from the accumulated warmth. Clearing eyes, checking fingers and toes for any signs of frostbite that might have occurred despite precautions. The first person to rise, often an adult who needs to prepare for hunting or other essential tasks, does so with careful movements that minimize disruption to the shared heat envelope. They might reach for outer garments that have been stored in the sleeping area, putting them on while still under the shared furs as much as possible. This thoughtful consideration of the collective comfort demonstrates how deeply ingrained the cooperative nature of survival is in this environment. As you lie there between sleep and wakefulness, you might reflect on how different this experience is from sleep in the modern world. Here, there's no snooze button to press, no coffee maker programmed to start automatically, no shower to stumble into. Yet the sleep itself is often deeper, more aligned with the body's natural needs, more connected to the rhythms of the natural world and the community. The process of rising continues gradually. One by one, people emerge from the shared sleeping platform, donning outdoor clothing, preparing for the day's tasks. Children might remain sleeping longer, their smaller bodies requiring more rest and being more vulnerable to cold. The sleeping platform doesn't empty all at once, but in a staggered pattern that maintains some warmth for those still resting. As people rise, they might consume some food, perhaps frozen meat or fish that provides immediate calories to fuel the body's heat production in the cold environment. This morning meal isn't elaborate, but focused on providing the energy needed for survival. It might be eaten while still on or near the sleeping platform, maximizing the use of the accumulated warmth before venturing into the colder areas of the igloo and eventually the extreme cold outside. The clothing put on before leaving the sleeping platform is donned in a specific order, developed through generations of experience with extreme cold. Inner layers first, carefully checked for dryness, then middle layers that provide the main insulation. Finally, outer protective layers that shield against wind and moisture. Each piece is examined for integrity, each closure secured, each overlap checked. In temperatures where exposed skin can freeze in minutes, there's no room for carelessness in dressing. Footwear receives special attention. Traditional Inuit boots, or kamiks, are marvels of Arctic engineering. Made from seal or caribou skin, they often incorporate multiple layers, sometimes with grass insulation between them. The design allows moisture from sweat to escape while keeping external moisture out. Before putting them on, they're checked carefully for any ice or snow that might have accumulated inside overnight. Hands are similarly protected with sophisticated mittens or gloves designed for specific tasks. Some have separate trigger fingers for hunting, while keeping the other fingers together for warmth. Others are designed for tasks requiring more dexterity. Like the boots, these are carefully checked before wearing, as any moisture inside could quickly lead to freezing and potential frostbite. As the dwelling fully awakens, the space itself undergoes subtle changes. The increased activity raises the temperature slightly. The lamp might be adjusted to provide more light for daily tasks. Snow might be brought in to melt for drinking and cooking. The transition from sleeping space to living space happens through these small, practical actions that transform the purpose of the shelter while maintaining its life-supporting environment. Looking back at the sleeping platform as the day begins, you might notice how the accumulated body heat has affected the snow beneath. The furs. There might be slight depressions where bodies lay, the heat having caused minimal melting that then refroze into more supportive contours. These natural adaptations of the sleeping surface continue night after night, the igloo itself gradually conforming to its inhabitants' needs. The practices and technologies surrounding sleep in the Arctic evolved over thousands of years of human habitation in this extreme environment. Each small detail, from the positioning of bodies to the maintenance of the lamp, from the preparation of clothing to the design of the shelter, represents accumulated wisdom passed through generations, tested against the unyielding reality of survival in extreme cold. Modern sleep science is only beginning to understand what Arctic indigenous peoples have known through practice for millennia: that quality sleep isn't just about comfort, but about creating the right environmental conditions for the body to restore itself. The careful balance of temperature, air quality, physical support, and social security achieved in traditional Inuit sleeping arrangements demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of human physiological needs, developed through observation and experience rather than laboratory studies. As you move through your day in this Arctic environment, the thought of returning to that warm sleeping platform might remain in your awareness, not as an escape from life, but as an essential part of its rhythm. Sleep here isn't a mere pause in activity, but an integral part of survival, given the same serious attention as hunting or food preparation. This respect for sleep as essential to life is something our modern world, with its celebration of busyness and sleep deprivation, has largely forgotten. Throughout the day, activities might include modifications or maintenance of the sleeping area, airing out furs when weather permits, repairing any damage to the igloo structure, gathering fuel for the lamp that will burn through another night. These tasks aren't separate from other survival activities, but integrated into the holistic practice of living in the Arctic environment. As another day in the Arctic begins to wane, though in winter this might not be marked by any change in external light, thoughts turn again to the coming night. Food is prepared with consideration for providing sufficient calories for the body to maintain heat during sleep. Clothing worn during the day is carefully checked for moisture before decisions are made about what to keep on or take off for sleeping. The quillic is checked, fuel levels assessed to ensure it will last through the night. The wick is trimmed and adjusted for optimal burning. This lamp, simple as it appears, requires skilled maintenance to function properly through the long, dark hours ahead. Its care is never an afterthought but a central concern, given the same serious attention as any critical survival tool. As evening activities wind down, bodies begin to prepare naturally for sleep. Without artificial light extending the day, the human circadian rhythm responds to the natural cues of activity reduction and meal completion. Melatonin production increases, body temperature begins its natural nighttime drop, muscles start to relax. These physiological preparations for sleep happen more naturally here than in our light-saturated modern environments. The sleeping platform is prepared again. Furs arranged, perhaps fresh snow added beneath to replace any that has compacted or melted slightly from body heat. The entrance to the igloo might be partially blocked with snow to reduce drafts while still maintaining necessary ventilation. These preparations aren't rushed, but given the thoughtful attention their importance to survival deserves. As people prepare to retire to the sleeping platform, there might be quiet conversation, stories shared, plans made for the coming day, observations about weather patterns or animal movements. These conversations serve multiple purposes: transmitting important survival information, maintaining social bonds, and creating a transition period between daily activities and sleep. The cadence of speech often naturally slows and softens during this time, helping prepare minds and bodies for rest. When it's finally time to sleep, the transition to the sleeping platform happens with the same careful attention to heat conservation as the morning's exit. Outer garments are removed in the right order and placed properly for the night. Bodies arrange themselves in the established pattern that maximizes shared warmth. The communal understanding of how to create and maintain the conditions for survival through the cold night requires no discussion. It's embedded in the culture, the body knowledge, the shared practice of generations. And so another night begins, another cycle in the ancient rhythm of human sleep in one of Earth's most extreme environments. The practices surrounding this sleep, the shelter design, the clothing adjustments, the social arrangements, the lamp maintenance, represent thousands of years of accumulated human wisdom about survival. Each detail matters. Each practice has been refined through generations of trial and error in an environment that allows little margin for mistake. The same patterns will repeat: the careful arrangement of bodies, the shared warmth, the maintained lamp, the sleeping platform that holds everyone safely above the coldest air. The same subtle sounds will form the night's soundtrack: quiet breathing, occasional shifting of furs, the small sounds of the flame, the ever-present wind beyond the snow walls. These patterns and sounds aren't just background to sleep, but integral parts of its structure in this environment. Modern sleep researchers study these traditional practices for insights into better sleep. They examine the benefits of sleeping in cooler ambient air while maintaining core body warmth. They look at the advantages of natural materials that regulate moisture and temperature. They consider the potential benefits of more communal sleeping, arrangements that provide both physical warmth and psychological security. In many ways, contemporary sleep science is rediscovering wisdom that Arctic peoples have employed for millennia. As you drift towards sleep again, you might appreciate anew the profound ingenuity represented in these seemingly simple arrangements. The igloo's architecture, working with natural principles of thermodynamics. The caribou furs, utilizing the remarkable insulating properties of hollow hair. The kulik, providing controlled heat with minimal fuel in an environment where fuel is precious. The social organization of the sleeping platform, maximizing the benefit of shared body heat. None of these elements happened by chance. All represent deep understanding of both the natural world and human physiological needs. Sleep here isn't just rest, but a central act of survival, approached with the same seriousness and skill as hunting or shelter building. It requires knowledge, preparation, proper tools, and community cooperation. In the extreme cold of the Arctic winter, effective sleep isn't just about comfort, but about life itself. The wisdom surrounding it, passed through generations, represents one of humanity's most successful adaptations to extreme environmental challenges. The rhythm continues night after night, season after season, generation after generation. The specific practices might evolve with changing conditions and available materials, but the fundamental understanding remains that human sleep in extreme environments requires thoughtful adaptation, cultural knowledge, and community cooperation. This understanding, developed over thousands of years of Arctic habitation, remains relevant even as climate change now transforms the environment where these practices evolved. As you lie there once more, feeling the shared warmth of bodies and furs, hearing the quiet sounds of breathing and the small flame, sensing the cold air on your face while your body remains warm, you're experiencing something deeply human yet increasingly rare in our modern, individualized world. Sleep, as it might have been for most of human history, communal, aligned with natural rhythms, embedded in the necessary practices of survival. There's wisdom in this approach to rest that our artificially lit, temperature-controlled, individually isolated sleeping environments have largely forgotten. The practices surrounding sleep in extreme cold didn't develop through scientific research or technological innovation as we understand those processes today. They emerged through generations of observation, experience, trial and error, cultural transmission of knowledge. This different path to wisdom, practical, experiential, cultural, reminds us that human understanding can develop through multiple approaches, each with its own validity and value. Sleep continues its cycles through the Arctic night, bodies resting and restoring themselves for another day of survival in one of Earth's most challenging environments. The accumulated wisdom surrounding this essential human activity, from shelter design to clothing adjustment, from fuel management to social arrangement, represents one of humanity's most successful adaptations to extreme conditions. There's much we could learn from these practices, even as our modern environments and challenges differ from those that shaped them. In the quiet darkness of the igloo, with the small flame of the quollic casting soft light on snow walls, human bodies find rest despite the extreme hostility of the environment outside. This achievement, creating conditions for restorative sleep in temperatures that would otherwise quickly kill, stands as a testament to human ingenuity, adaptability, and the power of cultural knowledge accumulated and transmitted through generations. It reminds us that wisdom can be found in practices developed long before our modern understanding of physiology, thermodynamics, or sleep science. As your own consciousness begins to fade into sleep, following the rhythm established by countless human beings who have slept through Arctic nights before you, you might carry with you a new appreciation for both the challenges of survival in extreme cold and the sophisticated ways humans have developed to meet those challenges. Sleep here isn't a luxury or an escape, but an essential component of life itself, approached with the seriousness and skill its importance demands. The night continues its slow passage, measured not in hours and minutes, but in the burning of the lamp, the depth of breathing, the small adjustments of bodies seeking optimal comfort within the shared warmth. Time here flows differently, aligned with natural processes rather than arbitrary divisions. Sleep follows this natural flow, deepening and lightening in response to the body's needs rather than external schedules. Morning will come again, not necessarily with daylight during the Arctic winter, but with the gradual transition from sleep to wakefulness, with the careful rising from the shared sleeping platform, with the precise donning of protective clothing, with the beginning of another day's necessary activities of survival. The wisdom surrounding sleep will continue to be practiced, refined, and transmitted to younger generations who will need this knowledge to survive in this demanding environment. And so the cycle continues, night after night, season after season, generation after generation. Human beings finding ways to rest and restore themselves even in Earth's most extreme environments. The practices surrounding sleep in the Arctic cold represent not just survival techniques but a profound form of human wisdom. Practical, experiential, cultural, that deserves recognition and respect even as our modern understanding of sleep continues to evolve through different methods of knowledge development. The quollic burns steadily through the night, its small flame both practical necessity and powerful symbol, a contained manifestation of the human ability to create and maintain the conditions for life, even in environments that seem to prohibit it. The sleeping bodies arranged carefully on the platform, sharing warmth and security, similarly represent something beyond mere survival technique. They embody the deeply social nature of human existence, our interdependence, our reliance on shared knowledge and mutual care. Sleep continues its essential work of restoration, the brain processing, the day's experiences, the body repairing cellular damage, energy reserves being replenished for tomorrow's demands. These physiological processes happen no differently here than in any human environment, but the conditions created to allow them represent a unique adaptation to extreme circumstances. Modern sleep science continues to uncover the mechanisms behind sleep's restorative functions, adding another layer of understanding to the practical wisdom developed through generations of Arctic living. As the night progresses toward another day, the cycle of human sleep in extreme cold continues its ancient rhythm, a testament to our species' remarkable adaptability, our capacity for developing and transmitting cultural knowledge, our ability to create conditions for life even in Earth's most challenging environments. In this rhythm, there's wisdom worth remembering, even as our modern sleeping environments differ dramatically from the Arctic igloo with its carefully tended lamp, its shared sleeping platform, its caribou fur coverings. The sound of breathing continues, quiet and steady. The small flame of the quollic maintains its gentle light and heat. The wind moves across the frozen landscape outside. Inside the snow shelter, human beings rest, restoring themselves for another day of life in the extreme cold. This is how it has been for thousands of years. This is how people have slept at temperatures that would otherwise quickly kill. This is one of humanity's most successful adaptations to our planet's most challenging environments. Sleep well. Beyond the regional variations in sleep practices that we've explored, there were also important differences in sleep approaches based on age, status, and role within Arctic communities. Children, elders, hunters, and those responsible for clothing production might all experience somewhat different sleep arrangements even within the same dwelling. These variations reflected both practical considerations and social structures that shaped all aspects of Arctic life. Children's sleep was particularly protected in most Arctic communities, recognizing their greater vulnerability to cold. The sleeping position of children was rarely left to chance, but carefully arranged to maximize their access to warmth. Typically, small children would sleep between adults, often between their parents, benefiting from body heat on both sides. This arrangement provided not just physical warmth, but psychological security, reinforcing family bonds during the vulnerable state of sleep. Very young infants presented special considerations for sleep in the Arctic environment. Many groups used a carrying pouch called an amouti, where a baby could be carried against the mother's back during the day and then brought around to nurse and sleep against her chest at night. The design of these garments allowed for nursing and sleep without exposing either mother or child to the cold air. Some versions included a hood large enough to cover both the mother's and the baby's head, creating a shared breathing space that helped warm the air before inhalation. Beyond these practical aspects, the amouti provided continuous physical contact between mother and infant, maintaining the baby's temperature through direct sharing of the mother's body heat. This arrangement aligns with what modern research suggests about the benefits of physical contact for infant sleep quality, temperature, regulation, and even breathing pattern stability. What developed as a practical solution to keeping infants warm in extreme cold also created optimal conditions for infant development. Elders, like children, often received special consideration in sleeping arrangements. Their greater vulnerability to cold due to reduced circulation and sometimes lower body fat was recognized and accommodated through sleeping positions that provided additional warmth. An elder might be given a place near the quollic or surrounded by younger adults who could share their body heat. This practical arrangement also reflected the respected position of elders within the community, whose knowledge and experience remained vital for group survival. Hunters, who expended significant energy during their activities and whose skills were essential for group survival, sometimes received preferential consideration in sleeping arrangements. After returning from hunting, in extreme conditions, a hunter might be given the warmest position to help recover from cold exposure and physical exertion. This preferential treatment wasn't seen as unfair, but as practical support for those whose activities were most physically demanding and most essential to community survival. Women responsible for clothing production, particularly the sewing of water-resistant seams necessary for survival gear, were sometimes given sleeping positions that protected their hands from cold. The fine motor skills required for producing weatherproof clothing could be compromised by even mild frostbite. To the fingers, making hand protection not just a personal concern, but a community survival issue. Sleeping arrangements that kept these skilled hands warm ensured continued production of the gear necessary for everyone's survival. The gendered aspects of sleep in Arctic communities reflected broader divisions of labor and responsibility. In many groups, women maintained primary responsibility for the quollic, often adjusting the flame during the night without fully waking. This skill of maintaining proper flame height while in a semi-sleep state developed through practice, becoming almost instinctual. The responsibility reflected women's broader role in maintaining the domestic environment that made survival possible. Pregnant women received special consideration in many Arctic communities. Their sleep needs recognized as different due to their condition. Their sleeping positions might be modified with additional support, and they might be given locations that made it easier to rise for the more frequent urination common during pregnancy. These accommodations reflected an understanding of the importance of maternal health for community continuity. Men's roles in sleep maintenance often focused on checking the structural integrity of the dwelling during difficult weather conditions. In an igloo during a storm, for example, men might wake periodically to check for any snow accumulation that could compromise the structure or ventilation. This vigilance represented another aspect of sleep as a community practice rather than merely an individual experience. For younger unmarried adults, sleep arrangements often reflected social norms regarding appropriate contact between potential mates. In some communities, unrelated young men and women maintained greater separation during sleep, with family groupings or gender groupings forming the primary sleeping units. In others, closely supervised communal sleeping created carefully monitored opportunities for young people to become familiar with potential partners. Visitors to a community presented another variation in sleep arrangements. Hospitality in most Arctic cultures dictated that visitors be given favorable sleeping positions that provided good access to warmth. This hospitality wasn't just a social nicety, but a survival practice in an environment where travelers needed safe shelter. The integration of visitors into sleeping arrangements demonstrated the flexibility of these systems, their ability to expand to include additional people when necessary. Hunting trips away from the main settlement required temporary sleep arrangements that could be established quickly with minimal materials. Hunters might create simple snow shelters or rely primarily on careful arrangement of their clothing and traveling furs to create sufficient protection for a night's rest. These temporary arrangements maintain the same principles as more established sleeping systems: elevation above the snow when possible, protection from wind, shared body heat, but in more minimalist forms that could be created quickly at the end of a day's travel. During seasonal migrations between winter and summer territories, transitional sleeping arrangements demonstrated remarkable adaptability. Moving between different dwelling types required flexible approaches to sleep, with principles of warmth conservation and appropriate shelter applied in changing circumstances. The ability to maintain restorative sleep during these transitional periods was essential for the physical and cognitive functioning needed to complete the migration successfully. The social learning surrounding sleep began in earliest childhood, with young children absorbing through observation and experience the practices that would allow them to maintain effective sleep throughout their lives. They learned by watching and participating in the daily establishment of sleeping arrangements, the preparation of the platform, the arrangement of furs, the adjustment of clothing, the social organization of the sleeping space. This education required no formal teaching but was embedded in daily life. As children grew, they gradually took on greater responsibility for maintaining their own sleep conditions, learning to adjust their clothing appropriately, to position themselves effectively, within the shared sleeping space to balance their need for warmth with the prevention of excessive sweating. These weren't trivial skills, but essential survival techniques in an environment that allowed little margin for error. By adulthood, most Arctic people had developed a sophisticated practical understanding of sleep in extreme conditions. How to prepare for it, how to maintain it, how to adjust it according to changing circumstances. This knowledge wasn't abstract, but embodied, not theoretical, but practical, developed through years of experience in the specific conditions of their environment. The cultural transmission of this sleep knowledge represents another aspect of its sophistication. Without written manuals or formal instruction, generations of Arctic people successfully passed on the complex practices that allowed for restorative sleep in one of Earth's most challenging environments. This transmission happened through observation, guided practice, storytelling, and direct experience, a model of education embedded in daily life rather than separated from it. The integration of sleep knowledge with broader cultural frameworks gave it meaning beyond mere practical technique. Sleep practices weren't isolated survival strategies, but connected to worldviews, social structures, and spiritual understandings. Dreams might be seen as sources of important information or connection with non-physical realms. The vulnerability of sleep might be protected through social arrangements and sometimes spiritual practices that created a sense of security despite the hostile environment outside. The language surrounding sleep in many Arctic cultures reflects this integration, with rich vocabularies describing different sleep states, qualities, and arrangements. Some languages include specific terms for the feeling of wanting to return to the warm sleeping platform on a cold morning, for the particular comfort of shared body heat during sleep, for the state of being awake enough to tend the lamp while not fully conscious. This linguistic richness demonstrates the cultural importance of sleep in Arctic life. Specific sleep-related artifacts developed by Arctic peoples further demonstrate the sophisticated understanding of sleep needs. Besides the obvious examples of clothing and bedding, specialized tools might include small scratching sticks that could be used to address itches without fully removing mittens, adjustable ventilation devices for managing airflow in dwellings, or specialized containers for bodily functions that allowed one to avoid leaving the warm sleeping area during the night. Each represented a specific solution to challenges that might otherwise disrupt restorative sleep. The psychological aspects of sleep in the Arctic environment deserve consideration as well, creating conditions for not just physical comfort, but mental security in an environment of extreme cold required both practical arrangements and cultural frameworks that allowed for the surrender to vulnerability that sleep requires. Stories, belief systems, and social practices all contributed to creating this sense of security despite the objectively dangerous conditions outside the sleeping area. Modern research into the psychology of extreme environments suggests that the ability to maintain normal sleep architecture is crucial for both physical health and psychological well-being in challenging conditions. Studies of personnel in Antarctic research stations, the closest modern parallel to traditional Arctic living, show that disrupted sleep can lead to psychological difficulties including increased conflict, decreased cognitive performance, and mood disturbances. The sophisticated sleep systems developed by Arctic peoples likely helped prevent such issues. The circadian rhythm challenges of Arctic living, the extended darkness of winter and light of summer, required specific adaptations in sleep timing and quality. Modern research with subjects in similar conditions suggests that without appropriate adaptations, these extreme light conditions can severely disrupt normal sleep-wake cycles. The traditional knowledge surrounding sleep in these conditions likely included practices that helped maintain reasonable alignment with natural bodily rhythms, despite the extreme external conditions. The hormone melatonin, crucial for sleep. Regulation is produced in response to darkness. In the extended dark of Arctic winter, melatonin production might naturally increase, potentially leading to longer sleep duration or changes in sleep architecture. Traditional Arctic sleep practices worked within these physiological realities rather than fighting against them, allowing seasonal variations in sleep patterns that aligned with natural hormonal changes. In contrast, the extended light of Arctic summer would naturally suppress melatonin production, potentially making sleep initiation more difficult. Traditional practices for managing summer sleep, including creating darkened sleeping areas within dwellings, using eye coverings, or adjusting activity patterns to align with natural fatigue rather than light cues, demonstrated understanding of these challenges and practical solutions for addressing them. The microbiome of traditional Arctic sleeping areas presents another interesting consideration. Modern research increasingly recognizes the importance of our microbial environment for health, including sleep health. The natural materials used in traditional sleeping arrangements, animal skins, plant fibers, natural oils, would have hosted distinct microbial communities compared to modern synthetic materials. While we can't know with certainty the impact of these differences, research suggests that natural materials often support more diverse and beneficial microbial environments. The consistent exposure to fresh air, despite the cold temperatures, represents another potentially beneficial aspect of traditional Arctic sleep environments. Modern research suggests that sleeping in well-ventilated spaces with lower carbon dioxide levels may improve sleep quality and next-day cognitive performance. The careful ventilation systems of traditional dwellings, designed primarily to remove smoke and excess moisture while minimizing heat loss, would have also maintained air quality conducive to restorative sleep. The sound environment of traditional Arctic sleep deserves consideration as well. Without the mechanical sounds of modern environments, the acoustic landscape would have been dominated by natural sounds: wind, human breathing, the small sounds of the dwelling settling or responding to temperature changes, the occasional calls of animals. This soundscape, consistent and predictable, may have contributed to sleep quality in ways different from our often unpredictable modern sound environments. The olfactory environment, the smells surrounding sleep, would also have differed significantly from modern sleeping environments. The sense of animal skins, burning oil in the kulik, the bodies of family members, cooking foods, and the materials of the dwelling itself would have created a consistent olfactory landscape. While modern sensibilities might find some of these scents challenging, familiarity and positive associations would have made them part of the normal sleep environment. The tactile experience of sleep on animal furs, rather than modern mattresses, created different patterns of support and pressure. Modern sleep research suggests that natural sleeping surfaces often provide better distribution of pressure and support for the body's natural alignment than many modern sleep surfaces. The slight unevenness of natural materials, rather than being a disadvantage, may actually reduce pressure on body prominences and improve circulation compared to uniformly flat surfaces. The thermal properties of traditional sleeping arrangements deserve particular attention. The combination of cool ambient air temperature with excellent insulation around the body creates conditions that modern sleep research suggests are optimal for both sleep initiation and maintenance. The slight drop in core body temperature that normally occurs with sleep onset happens more effectively in cooler ambient air, while the insulation of furs prevents the body from getting too cold during the deeper stages of sleep. The absence of artificial light sources, particularly those emitting blue wavelengths that most strongly suppress melatonin production, represents another advantage of traditional Arctic sleep environments. Modern research consistently shows that exposure to artificial light, especially from electronic devices, in the hours before sleep can significantly disrupt normal sleep architecture. Traditional Arctic peoples, using only the amber light of the qualic during evening hours, avoided this particular sleep disruptor. The relationship between physical exertion and sleep quality represents another area where traditional Arctic lifestyles may have created advantages. The high levels of physical activity required by hunting, gathering, and maintaining life in a challenging environment naturally produce the kind of physical fatigue that promotes deep sleep. Modern research consistently shows that appropriate physical activity improves sleep quality, depth, and continuity. The nutritional aspects of traditional Arctic diets may have influenced sleep as well. High in animal protein and fat, low in carbohydrates, these diets differ significantly from modern Western patterns. Some research suggests that lower carbohydrate intake, particularly in the hours before sleep, may improve some aspects of sleep architecture. The traditional diet, while developed for its energy efficiency and practicality in the Arctic environment, may have had secondary benefits for sleep quality. The social cohesion of Arctic communities, reinforced by shared sleeping arrangements, may have helped manage the psychological challenges of the extreme environment. Modern research suggests that feelings of social connection and security can improve sleep quality, while loneliness and social isolation often disrupt normal sleep patterns. The communal sleeping arrangements of traditional Arctic communities would have continuously reinforced social bonds, potentially improving psychological well-being and sleep quality. The integration of sleep into the broader pattern of life in Arctic communities, not as an interruption of real life, but as an essential component of it, may have created a healthier relationship with rest than many people experience in modern contexts. Without artificial separations between work and rest, productivity and recovery, the natural rhythms of activity and repose could flow more smoothly, potentially reducing the anxiety about sleep that now disrupts sleep for many in contemporary societies. As our exploration of Arctic sleep practices nears its conclusion, we might reflect on what these traditional approaches can teach us about our own relationships with sleep. Not that we should attempt to recreate Arctic sleeping conditions. Our environments and needs differ dramatically, but that we might reconsider some of the principles that guided these practices and their potential relevance to contemporary sleep challenges. The careful attention to creating appropriate environmental conditions for sleep, rather than expecting the body to adapt to whatever conditions happen to exist, represents one such principle. Traditional Arctic peoples recognize that sleep isn't just a pause in activity, but an active process requiring specific conditions for optimal function. This recognition might inspire more thoughtful attention to our own sleep environments. The acceptance of seasonal variations in sleep patterns, rather than imposing a constant schedule throughout the year, represents another principle worth considering. Our bodies continue to respond to seasonal changes in light and temperature despite our technological buffers. Some flexibility in sleep timing and duration with changing seasons might better align with these natural tendencies. The recognition of sleep as a community concern, rather than merely an individual, one might also offer insight. While modern Western cultures emphasize individual sleep arrangements and schedules, our sleep inevitably affects and is affected by those with whom we share our lives. More conscious attention to these interconnections might improve sleep for entire households or communities. The integration of sleep knowledge into practical education from earliest childhood represents another valuable approach. Rather than treating sleep as something that just happens naturally without need for skill development, Arctic cultures recognized that effective sleep practices require knowledge and experience. Teaching children about creating conditions for good sleep might be as important as teaching them about nutrition or exercise. The recognition of different sleep needs based on age, activity level, and physical condition represents another principle with contemporary relevance. Rather than applying one-size-fits-all recommendations for sleep duration or arrangements, Arctic practices acknowledged and accommodated different needs within the community. This individualized approach aligns with modern understanding of sleep's variable requirements. The respect for sleep as essential to survival and well-being, not as time wasted or productivity lost, perhaps represents the most important principle we might reconsider. In a culture that often celebrates busyness and sleep deprivation as signs of commitment or importance, the Arctic recognition of sleep as fundamental to effective functioning offers a valuable counterbalance. As your awareness continues to fade towards sleep, these reflections may also fade, replaced by the simple experience of rest itself. Your breathing finds its natural rhythm. Your muscles release their tension. Your consciousness transitions from directed thought to the more fluid state of dreams. Sleep does its essential work of restoration, as it has for countless human beings across time and space. In the Arctic igloo, the quollic burns steadily through the night. Bodies rest close together on the elevated sleeping platform, sharing warmth beneath caribou furs. Breath forms small clouds in the cool air. Outside, the temperature may drop to extremes that seem incompatible with human survival. Yet inside this simple structure, people sleep, restore themselves, and prepare for another day of life in one of Earth's most challenging environments. This achievement, creating conditions for restorative sleep in temperatures that would otherwise quickly kill, represents one of humanity's most successful adaptations to extreme environments. The wisdom embedded in these practices offers insights that extend beyond their specific context, inviting us to consider our own relationships with sleep, with environment, with the natural cycles that continue to influence our physiology despite our technological buffers. As you drift deeper into sleep, let these reflections fade, replaced by the simple experience of rest itself. Your breathing slows and deepens. Your body temperature drops slightly as it does for all humans during sleep. Your consciousness transitions from the directed thought of wakefulness to the more fluid states of dreaming. Sleep does its essential work of restoration, as it has for countless human beings across time and space. Rest well, sleep deeply, and perhaps carry with you into dreams an appreciation for this fundamental human experience that connects us across all environments and cultures. The surrender to sleep, the vulnerability of rest, the restoration that allows life to continue, day after day, night after night, throughout the human journey on Earth. Sleep well. It's worth noting that the sleep practices we've been exploring weren't uniform across all Arctic peoples. Different Inuit groups developed variations in their approaches to sleep based on their specific environmental conditions, available resources, and cultural traditions. These variations demonstrate the remarkable adaptability of human sleep strategies, even within the broader category of Arctic adaptation. In the regions of what is now northern Alaska, for example, some Inupiat groups traditionally used semi-subterranean houses called kargi for winter dwelling rather than igloos. These structures, partially dug into the ground and covered with a framework of whale bones or driftwood overlaid with sod, created different sleeping conditions than the snow igloos we've primarily discussed. The thermal properties of earth and sod differ from those of snow, creating a different microclimate for sleep. Within these earthen structures, sleeping platforms were often built along the walls, raised above the floor level just as in igloos, but constructed from wood rather than snow. These platforms might be covered with woven grass mats before the addition of animal furs, creating multiple layers of insulation between the sleeper and the cold ground. The consistent principle across these variations remains the same: separation from the cold earth and elevation above the coldest layer of air. In Greenland, some Inuit groups traditionally used stone rather than snow or earth for their winter dwellings. These stone houses, sometimes supplemented with whalebone and covered with sod, created more permanent structures that might be used for multiple winters. The sleeping platforms in these dwellings were often built from stone as well, sometimes with small storage spaces beneath them. Despite the different building materials, the principle of elevating the sleeping area to take advantage of rising warm air remained consistent. The variations extended to sleeping gear as well. While caribou fur was widely used across the Arctic for its superior insulating properties, Groups in coastal areas without access to large caribou herds might rely more heavily on seal skin, which has different thermal properties. Seal skin is less insulating than caribou fur, but more resistant to moisture, an important consideration in coastal areas with higher humidity. These coastal groups developed techniques for maximizing the insulating value of the materials available to them, such as using multiple layers or incorporating bird skins with the down still attached. Some groups used what anthropologists have, called sleeping bags, fur enclosures that individuals or small family groups could sleep within, rather than using loose furs as blankets. These sleeping bags were typically made with 2 layers of fur, the inner layer with the fur facing inward toward the sleeper, the outer layer with the fur facing outward. This double fur construction created a remarkably effective insulating system, trapping warm air between the 2 layers as well as in the fur itself. The lamp designs varied as well, with different groups developing distinct styles based on available materials and cultural preferences. The size, shape, and material of the kulik differed between regions, though the fundamental principle remained the same: a controlled flame burning oil from marine mammals or occasionally other animal fat. These variations in lamp design affected the heat and light available during sleep, subtly altering the sleeping environment. Even the relationship between sleep and other daily activities varied among Arctic groups. Some maintained fairly clear distinctions between sleeping and waking areas within their dwellings, while others had more fluid arrangements where the same space might be used for multiple purposes depending on the time of day. These variations reflected different social organizations and practical needs, even while sharing the common challenge of creating viable sleeping conditions in extreme cold. What remained consistent across these variations was the understanding that sleep in extreme cold requires careful management of the relationship between body and environment. All groups, regardless of their specific adaptations, recognized the need to create a microclimate for sleep that allowed the body to maintain its core temperature without expending excessive energy. All developed techniques for managing the critical issue of moisture during sleep, preventing sweat from becoming a dangerous source of cooling. All Arctic groups also shared an understanding of sleep as a community activity rather than a purely individual one. The specifics of sleeping arrangements varied. Some groups arranged sleepers in rows, others in more circular patterns. Some separated family units with small barriers, others maintained more open arrangements. But the fundamental recognition of sleep as a shared experience remained consistent across these variations. These variations in sleep practices across different Arctic groups weren't random, but represented specific adaptations to local conditions. Groups living in areas with abundant snowfall developed expertise in snow construction, leading to the sophisticated igloo designs. Those in regions with less snowfall but access to driftwood or whale bones developed different construction techniques for their dwellings and sleeping platforms. Each variation represents a specific solution to the common challenge of creating viable conditions for sleep in extreme cold. The differences extended to the social aspects of sleep as well. In some groups, storytelling before sleep was a highly developed practice, with skilled storytellers sharing narratives that might continue over multiple nights. In others, the pre-sleep period might be characterized by quieter conversation or singing. Some groups had more elaborate rituals surrounding the transition to sleep, while others approached it more pragmatically. These variations reflected broader cultural differences while addressing the same fundamental need for transition between wakefulness and sleep. Even the daily timing of sleep varied, particularly in response to seasonal changes. Some groups maintained relatively consistent sleep schedules throughout the year, while others dramatically altered their sleep timing with the changing seasons. In the high Arctic during summer, when daylight is continuous, some groups might sleep primarily when tired, rather than according to any consistent daily schedule. These variations in timing demonstrate the flexibility of human sleep patterns when not constrained by artificial schedules. The physical positions adopted for sleep also varied. Some groups preferred side-sleeping arrangements where people lay in rows, spoon fashion, maximizing the shared body heat. Others adopted more varied positions within a shared sleeping area. These variations might be influenced by available space, cultural preferences, or practical considerations related to dwelling design. The consistent principle across these variations was the recognition of shared body heat as a valuable resource in the cold environment. Temperature management strategies showed similar variation across groups. Some relied heavily on the heat provided by the Kulik, maintaining these lamps at higher output throughout the night. Others focused more on body heat conservation through shared sleeping arrangements and insulating materials, keeping the lamps at minimal levels during sleep. These different emphases reflected both cultural preferences and practical considerations like fuel availability. The approaches to dress for sleep varied as well. Some groups removed nearly all-day clothing before sleep, relying on shared furs and body heat for warmth. Others maintained lighter clothing during sleep. Some had garments specifically designed for sleeping, while others simply used lighter versions of day clothing. These variations reflected different solutions to the common challenge of maintaining body temperature while preventing the accumulation of moisture from sweat. What's remarkable about these variations is that they all represented effective solutions to the challenge of sleep in extreme cold. There was no single correct approach, but multiple viable strategies developed through generations of experience in specific local conditions. This diversity of effective solutions demonstrates the ingenuity of human adaptation, our ability to develop multiple approaches to common challenges based on available resources and cultural frameworks. Modern sleep research suggests that despite these variations in specific practices, the sleep quality achieved by different Arctic groups was similarly effective. The consistent principles underlying these diverse practices, elevated sleeping platforms, shared body heat, moisture management, appropriate insulation, protected but ventilated spaces, created conditions that allowed for the deep, restorative sleep necessary for both physical and cognitive functioning in challenging environments. The sleep achievements of Arctic peoples become even more remarkable when considered in the context of what we now know about the physiological impacts of extreme cold on sleep. Research with modern subjects exposed to cold environments shows that without appropriate adaptations, cold exposure can significantly disrupt sleep architecture, reducing deep, slow-wave sleep and REM sleep, increasing awakenings and diminishing overall sleep quality. The sophisticated sleep systems developed by Arctic peoples effectively countered these potential disruptions. Some aspects of Arctic sleep practices may actually have created better conditions for certain elements of sleep quality than our modern arrangements. The cooler ambient air temperature combined with excellent insulation creates an ideal thermal environment for sleep initiation and maintenance. The absence of artificial light allows for natural melatonin production. The physical activity required by the hunting and gathering lifestyle promotes deeper sleep. These factors may have contributed to sleep efficiency despite the challenging environment. The effectiveness of these sleep practices wasn't just a matter of physical comfort, but of survival itself. Poor sleep quality leads to diminished cognitive function, reduced physical coordination, and impaired decision-making, all potentially fatal liabilities in an environment that allows little margin for error. The sophistication of Arctic sleep systems wasn't a luxury, but a necessity, as essential to survival as hunting skills or proper clothing. This understanding of sleep as essential to survival, as worthy of the same careful attention as any other, survival skill represents perhaps the most important insight we might gain from examining Arctic sleep practices. In our modern world, with its celebration of productivity and tendency to view sleep as an interruption of more important activities, this recognition of sleep as fundamental to functioning represents a valuable perspective. The variations in Sleep practices across different Arctic groups also remind us that there isn't a single natural or correct way for humans to sleep. Our species has developed multiple effective approaches to sleep based on environmental conditions, available resources, and cultural frameworks. This diversity of viable sleep strategies suggests that there might be multiple paths to restorative sleep in our modern context as well, rather than a single ideal approach that works for everyone. As contemporary sleep science continues to explore the conditions for optimal rest, the traditional knowledge embedded in Arctic sleep practices offers valuable insights. The understanding of temperature regulation, the recognition of sleep as a community experience, the alignment with natural environmental rhythms, the careful attention to creating appropriate sleep environments, all represent wisdom developed through generations of practical experience in challenging conditions. The sleep practices of Arctic peoples weren't static, but evolved over time in response to changing conditions, available resources, and cultural contact. This adaptability, this responsiveness to changing circumstances offers another important lesson. Sleep practices need not be rigid, but can evolve to meet changing needs while maintaining the fundamental principles that support restorative rest. In the modern world, with its unprecedented control over sleeping environments through heating, cooling, and lighting technologies, we have the capacity to create almost any conditions we desire for sleep. The challenge becomes knowing what conditions to create, what parameters support optimal rest. The traditional knowledge embedded in Arctic sleep practices, combined with contemporary sleep science, offers guidance for these choices. The ingenuity represented in Arctic sleep systems reminds us that human beings have been solving complex problems through observation, experience, and cultural transmission of knowledge far longer than we've been conducting formal scientific research. The solutions developed through these traditional knowledge systems have their own sophistication, their own validity, their own wisdom to offer alongside more formalized approaches to understanding. As your awareness continues to fade toward sleep, these reflections may also fade, replaced by the simple experience of rest itself. Your breathing slows and deepens. Your muscles relax more completely. Your consciousness begins to transition from directed thought to the more fluid state of dreams. Sleep does its essential work of restoration, regardless of the specific conditions surrounding it. Yet perhaps something of these reflections on Arctic sleep wisdom remains in your awareness, an appreciation for the ingenuity with which human beings have created conditions for rest even in Earth's most challenging environments. Perhaps this appreciation deepens your relationship with your own sleep, inviting more conscious attention to this essential aspect of well-being that our busy modern lives often neglect. The story of sleep in the Arctic cold is ultimately a story of human adaptability, our capacity to create conditions for life and health even in environments that seem hostile to human habitation. The sophisticated sleep systems developed by Arctic peoples stand as testament to this adaptability, this problem-solving capacity, this ability to find solutions through generations of practical experience and cultural transmission of knowledge. As the night continues its passage, as your consciousness fades completely into sleep, the cycle of human rest continues its ancient rhythm. Bodies repair and restore themselves. Minds process the experiences of the day. Energy reserves replenish for tomorrow's needs. This fundamental cycle continues across all human environments, linking us despite our different sleep practices and conditions. In the Arctic igloo, the kulak burns steadily through the night. Bodies rest close together on the elevated sleeping platform, sharing warmth beneath caribou furs. Breath forms small clouds in the cool air. Outside, the temperature may drop to extremes that seem incompatible with human survival. Yet inside this simple structure, people sleep, restore themselves, and prepare for another day of life in one of Earth's most challenging environments. This achievement, creating conditions for restorative sleep in temperatures that would otherwise quickly Kill represents one of humanity's most successful adaptations to extreme environments. The wisdom embedded in these practices offers insights that extend beyond their specific context, inviting us to consider our own relationships with sleep, with environment, with the natural cycles that continue to influence our physiology despite our technological buffers. As you drift deeper into sleep, let these reflections fade, replaced by the simple experience of rest itself. Your breathing finds its natural rhythm. Your body temperature drops slightly as it does for all humans during sleep. Your consciousness transitions from the directed thought of wakefulness to the more fluid states of dreaming. Sleep does its Itway, essential work of restoration, as it has for countless human beings across time and space. Rest well, sleep deeply, and perhaps carry with you into dreams an appreciation for this fundamental human experience that connects us across all environments and cultures. The surrender to sleep, the vulnerability of rest, the restoration that allows life to continue, day after day, night after night, throughout the human journey on Earth. Sleep well. But before you drift completely into unconsciousness, let's consider how the sleep practices of the Arctic peoples vary with the seasons. We've been focusing on the extreme winter conditions, but the Arctic year has other phases, each requiring different adaptations for comfortable sleep. During summer months, when daylight may last for 20 hours or more, sleep takes on different patterns and challenges. In summer, many Inuit groups traditionally moved from winter homes to lighter, more portable dwellings. These might be tents, made from seal or caribou skins stretched over frameworks of wood or bone. Unlike the igloo, these summer dwellings weren't primarily designed for warmth, but for ventilation and protection from insects, which can be surprisingly abundant in the brief Arctic summer. The challenges of sleep shift from retaining heat to managing the extended daylight, which can disrupt natural circadian rhythms. To address the constant daylight of Arctic summer, people developed various practices. Sleeping areas might be arranged in the shadiest part of the dwelling. Extra layers of skins might be used not for warmth, but for blocking light. Sleep timing might shift to whenever natural fatigue occurred, rather than following a strict day-night pattern. The body adapts to these seasonal changes, just as it adapts to the extended darkness of winter. The sleeping platform changes too. Without the need for elevation to escape cold air, summer sleeping arrangements might be directly on the ground, with fewer insulating layers beneath. The ubiquitous caribou skins remain important, however, providing comfort and separation from the often damp ground. During this season, the sleeping platform is less about heat conservation and more about creating a dry, relatively comfortable surface for rest. Clothing for sleep changes dramatically with the seasons. The careful layering system of winter, designed primarily to manage moisture while retaining heat, gives way to lighter garments. Summer sleep clothing focuses more on protection from insects and managing the occasional chill of summer nights, which even in the Arctic can drop to near freezing. Some groups might sleep in lighter skin garments, while others might use plant fiber clothing during the brief, warm season. The communal nature of sleep remains consistent across seasons, however. The shared sleeping area continues to reinforce social bonds and provide security. Children still sleep near adults, learning through proximity, the patterns and practices of their culture. The transmission of knowledge through these shared experiences continues regardless of season, an ongoing education in survival that requires no formal teaching. The transitional seasons, spring and fall, present their own challenges for sleep. These periods of rapidly changing conditions require flexibility in sleeping arrangements. A sudden cold snap in late summer might necessitate quickly reverting to more winter-like sleeping arrangements. An unexpected warm period in spring might allow for opening the dwelling to fresh air, changing the sleeping environment significantly. This adaptability, this responsiveness to environmental conditions, characterizes all aspects of traditional Arctic life, including sleep. The spring brings particular challenges as the snow and ice begin to melt. Igloos become unstable as the snow softens, requiring increased vigilance or transition to other dwelling types. The ground becomes muddy and wet, making the separation between sleeping area and ground even more important. The melting landscape can create increased humidity inside dwellings, affecting sleep quality and requiring adjustments to bedding and clothing to maintain comfort. Fall brings its own transition as daylight rapidly decreases and temperatures begin to drop. This season requires preparation for the coming winter, including repairing or creating winter clothing, preparing winter dwellings, and beginning the shift to the more calorie-dense winter diet that will support the body's increased metabolic demands. Sleep during this transitional time might involve gradually increasing the insulation of the sleeping platform and adjusting to the changing light conditions. Throughout all these seasonal changes, the cultural practices surrounding sleep maintain their importance. The careful preparation of the sleeping area, the maintenance of appropriate clothing and bedding, the shared nature of the sleeping space, these elements remain consistent even as their specific manifestations change with the seasons. This consistency provides security and predictability in an environment characterized by extreme seasonal variations. The impact of these seasonal changes on sleep extends beyond the physical arrangements to affect sleep quality and patterns. Research suggests that indigenous Arctic peoples traditionally experience different sleep duration and quality with the changing seasons. Winter sleep might be longer and deeper, aligned with the extended darkness and the body's natural tendency to increase sleep duration in response to reduced light. Summer sleep might be shorter and more fragmented, adapting to the extended daylight and increased activity opportunities. These seasonal variations in sleep align with the body's natural rhythms in ways that our modern, artificially lit, temperature-controlled environments often disrupt. The traditional Arctic approach to sleep acknowledges and works with these natural variations, rather than imposing a constant sleep pattern throughout the year. There's wisdom in this responsiveness to natural cycles, a wisdom our modern sleep habits often overlook. The tools and technologies supporting sleep also shift with the seasons. The quollic, so essential for winter survival, becomes less central. In summer, when its heat is less necessary and may even be unwelcome. Light management becomes more important than heat management. The focus of technological adaptation shifts accordingly, with innovations developed for creating shade or managing insects taking precedence over those designed for heat retention. These seasonal shifts in sleep practices haven't received the same attention in modern sleep research as the more dramatic winter survival techniques. Yet, they represent equally important adaptations to environmental conditions, equally sophisticated understandings of how to create optimal conditions for restorative sleep in changing circumstances. The flexibility of these practices, their responsiveness to environmental conditions, offers valuable insights for our understanding of human sleep needs. As modern climate change alters the Arctic environment, many of these traditional sleep practices are changing or being lost. The predictable seasonal patterns that shaped these sleep adaptations are becoming less reliable. Winter temperatures may not drop as low, spring may come earlier, fall may extend longer. These changes require new adaptations, new approaches, to creating conditions for restorative sleep in an environment increasingly characterized by uncertainty rather than predictable extremes. Some aspects of traditional sleep wisdom remain relevant despite these changes. The understanding of how to manage body moisture during sleep, how to create appropriate microclimates for rest, how to align sleep patterns with natural rhythms of light and dark. These insights continue to offer value even as the specific conditions they address evolve. The principles underlying these practices transcend their particular manifestations. The story of sleep in the Arctic is ultimately a story of human adaptability, our capacity to create conditions for life and well-being, even in Earth's most extreme environments. The specific practices developed for sleeping in severe cold represent just one example of this remarkable adaptability. This ability to find solutions to environmental challenges through observation, experience, and cultural transmission of knowledge. As you drift further towards sleep, perhaps carrying with you these images of Arctic night, shared warmth beneath caribou furs, the small flame of the kulik casting shadows on snow walls, you might appreciate anew the ingenuity represented in these seemingly simple arrangements. Each element, the architecture of the dwelling, the properties of the materials, the social organization of the sleeping space, represents deep understanding of both the natural world and human physiological needs. The sleeping practices of Arctic peoples remind us that human wisdom comes in many forms. The sophisticated understanding of thermodynamics, material properties, and human physiology embedded in these practices wasn't developed through formal scientific inquiry, but through generations of practical experience, careful observation, and cultural transmission of knowledge. This different path to wisdom has its own validity, its own value, offering insights that complement those developed through more formal methods of inquiry. The challenges of sleeping in extreme cold have largely disappeared from modern experience, at least for those with access to contemporary heating and shelter technologies. Yet some of the principles developed for Arctic survival remain relevant to our understanding of quality sleep. The benefits of a cool, sleeping environment combined with appropriate body insulation, the advantages of natural materials that regulate moisture and temperature, the importance of creating a secure sleeping space. These insights apply beyond the specific context that generated them. Modern sleep researchers continue to study traditional practices from around the world, including those of Arctic peoples, for insights into better sleep. These investigations often confirm the wisdom embedded in these practices, providing scientific explanation for their effectiveness. This convergence of traditional knowledge and scientific understanding represents a valuable integration of different approaches to human wisdom, each with its own contributions to make. As your consciousness continues to fade into sleep, following the rhythm established by countless human beings who have slept through Arctic nights before you, you might carry with you this appreciation for human adaptability, for our capacity to create conditions for life and well-being, even in the most challenging environments. The story of sleep in the Arctic cold is just one chapter in the larger human story of adaptation, innovation, and survival. The night continues its slow passage. The kulik burns steadily, its small flame providing just enough heat and light to sustain life through the darkness. Bodies rest close together on the sleeping platform, sharing warmth and security. Breath forms small clouds in the cool air, then dissipates. Outside, the temperature may drop to extremes that seem incompatible with human survival. Yet inside this simple shelter, people sleep, restore themselves, and prepare for another day of life in the Arctic environment. This cycle of cold and warmth, darkness and light, activity and rest has continued for thousands of years in the Arctic regions. The specific practices surrounding sleep have evolved with changing conditions and available materials. Yet the fundamental understanding remains that human sleep in extreme environments requires thoughtful adaptation, cultural knowledge, and community cooperation. This understanding, developed through generations of Arctic living, continues to offer insights even as the conditions that shaped it change. In recent decades, many traditional Arctic sleep practices have been altered by the introduction of modern materials and technologies. Foam mattresses may replace caribou skin sleeping platforms. Synthetic sleeping bags may substitute for shared fur coverings. Electric lights may extend activity into hours once reserved for sleep. These changes bring benefits: increased individual comfort, reduced labor in maintaining traditional materials, but may also result in the loss of some Advantages of traditional approaches, including their social aspects and their alignment with natural cycles. Some indigenous Arctic communities are working to preserve traditional knowledge even as they incorporate modern technologies, recognizing that these ancient practices represent not just practical techniques but cultural heritage and identity. The wisdom surrounding sleep, how to create optimal conditions in extreme environments, how to align rest with natural rhythms, how to integrate sleep into the social fabric of community life, forms an important part of this heritage. Research into the health impacts of these changing sleep practices suggests complex outcomes. Modern materials and technologies may provide increased individual comfort and convenience, yet the shift away from traditional patterns may disrupt connections between sleep and natural cycles, between individual rest and community bonds. The ongoing conversation between traditional wisdom and contemporary innovation continues to shape how people sleep in Arctic regions today. For those of us living outside these extreme environments, the story of sleep in the Arctic offers perspective on our own relationships with rest. Our climate-controlled bedrooms, individual mattresses, electrically lit evenings represent a very different approach to sleep than the shared platforms and naturally aligned rhythms of traditional Arctic communities. Neither approach is inherently superior. Each represents an adaptation to different conditions and priorities. What we might learn from the Arctic sleep story is not necessarily specific techniques to adopt, but broader principles to consider. How might our sleep benefit from greater alignment with natural cycles of light and temperature? What have we gained and lost in the shift from more communal to more individual sleeping arrangements? How can we create optimal conditions for restorative sleep within our own environmental and social context? These questions invite us to think more consciously about sleep, to recognize it not as a mere pause in activity, but as an essential component of well-being deserving thoughtful attention. The sophisticated sleep adaptations of Arctic peoples remind us that rest isn't an afterthought to survival, but integral to it, worthy of the same careful consideration as any other aspect of human life. As your awareness continues to fade toward sleep, these reflections may also fade, replaced by the simple experience of rest itself. Your breathing slows and deepens. Your muscles relax more completely. Your consciousness begins to transition from directed thought to the more fluid associations of pre-sleep and dreaming. This transition happens regardless of environment. Whether in an Arctic igloo or a modern bedroom, the human body follows similar patterns as it moves from wakefulness to sleep. The universality of these patterns reminds us of our shared humanity across vastly different environments and cultures. The specific adaptations may vary dramatically, shaped by environmental conditions and cultural frameworks, yet the underlying physiological processes remain consistent. We all sleep, we all dream, we all require this period of restoration for physical and mental well-being. In this shared necessity, this universal human experience of sleep, we find a connection that transcends the particular conditions of our rest. The Inuit person sleeping on a raised platform in an igloo, surrounded by family beneath caribou furs, experiences physiologically similar sleep cycles to someone in a climate-controlled modern bedroom on a memory foam mattress. The preparations differ, the environmental challenges vary, but the essential experience connects us across these differences. Sleep continues its ancient work, consolidating memories, restoring energy, repairing cellular damage, processing emotional experiences. This work happens regardless of setting, a biological necessity as fundamental as breathing or eating. The wisdom of traditional Arctic sleep practices lies not in altering these basic functions, but in creating conditions that allow them to proceed optimally despite environmental challenges that would otherwise prevent them. As the night progresses, toward another day, the cycle of human sleep continues its ancient rhythm in the Arctic igloo. The quollic burns steadily, providing just enough heat to maintain a survivable microclimate. Bodies rest close together, sharing warmth beneath caribou. Furs. Breath forms small clouds in the cool air. Outside, stars wheel across the sky, their light reflecting off the snow-covered landscape. Inside, people sleep, restore themselves, dream. This scene has repeated countless times across thousands of years of human habitation in the Arctic. The specific manifestations have evolved with changing conditions and available materials, yet the fundamental elements remain consistent. The thoughtful creation of microclimate, the careful management of moisture, the sharing of body heat, the alignment with natural cycles. In these consistent elements, we find the essence of human adaptation to extreme cold. The story of sleep in the Arctic is ultimately a story of human ingenuity in the face of environmental challenges that would otherwise make survival impossible. The sophisticated understanding embedded in these seemingly simple arrangements, from the architecture of the igloo to the properties of caribou fur, from the design of the quillic to the social organization of the sleeping platform, represents one of humanity's most successful adaptations to extreme conditions. As your consciousness continues to fade into the rhythm of sleep, you might carry with you this appreciation for human adaptability, for our capacity to create conditions for life and well-being even in Earth's most challenging environments. The practices surrounding sleep in extreme cold stand as testament to this adaptability, this ingenuity, this remarkable human capacity for finding solutions through observation, experience, and cultural transmission of knowledge. Sleep well, knowing that you share this fundamental human experience with countless others across time and space, each finding ways to create the conditions for restorative rest within their particular environments. In this shared necessity, this universal human experience, we find a connection that transcends the specific circumstances of our sleep, linking us to both our evolutionary past and our global present. The night continues. The quillic burns steadily. Breath forms small clouds in the cool air. Bodies rest close together, sharing warmth. Sleep does its essential work of restoration. And so it has been for thousands of years in the Arctic night, human beings finding ways to rest and restore themselves even in conditions that seem incompatible with survival. This is the story of sleep in extreme cold, a story of human adaptability, ingenuity, and the wisdom that comes from generations of practical experience. As your awareness fades completely into sleep, these reflections fade too, replaced by the simple experience of rest itself. Your breathing slows and deepens. Your muscles relax completely. Your consciousness transitions from directed thought to the more fluid state of sleep. The story continues without your conscious awareness, just as the quillic continues to burn through the Arctic night, maintaining the conditions for life, even as those it protects surrender to the vulnerability of sleep. Rest well, sleep deeply, and perhaps carry with you into your dreams this appreciation for one of humanity's most remarkable adaptations. Finding ways to sleep, to restore ourselves, to continue life even in Earth's most extreme environments. In this adaptation, this creation of conditions for rest amid hostile cold, we find a testament to human ingenuity that continues to offer insights even as our modern sleeping environments differ dramatically from the Arctic igloo with its carefully tended lamp and shared sleeping platform. Sleep well.